Hitting record. Hello there, I'm Dani Henderson. Welcome to my beautiful channel. Here he is, our astrologer, our resident astrologer, George H. Lewis. Hello, my darling. How are you today?
I'm really well, Dani. I'm excited to be with you again at this incredible and intense time in our civilization. I'm in the mountains of North Carolina, which is beautiful, even though it's a very rainy day, but it reminds me of Bhutan with all the mist. It's very, very pleasant, actually.
Oh, that's so nice. Well, I'm in England currently, so yeah, very different in weather. So, George, let's get straight into it. Your information for this current time period that we're in right now. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I mean, the really big thing right now is this imminent conjunction of the North Node with the goddess Eris. Eris, the goddess of strife, and discord. You know, you only have to go back to the famous classical story of the wedding of the mortal king Peleus and the sea nymph Thetis. And that is how the Trojan War is created, because the goddess Eris, the goddess of discord, is not invited to the party. She's not invited to the wedding. And Eris, she's the daughter of Zeus and Hera, and therefore the sister of Ares, who is Mars. And isn't it interesting that the new variant is called Eris?
Mhm.
I was talking to, you had James Granvig on the show a
Yes,
month ago, and I was
James
talking to him
Brown.
the other day. Yes, and I was talking to him the other day, and of course, EG.5 put in a mirror backwards is 5G.E Eris. You know, it's all symbolism. You know, I think it was Confucius who said signs and symbols, they rule the world, not words and laws. And we are all beginning to see, and me included, it's mind-blowingly clear that nothing is by accident in the big world. Everything is planned meticulously and decades in advance. And so this is a massive awakening. And of course, we're just in time waking up to realize we're frogs in the cauldron. And we're waking up to realize that we are being boiled alive. And I think, you know, I've said this to you before, at the time, before the old timeline of 2016, we wouldn't have realized that. We would have not realized that we were being boiled alive. And this is why it's uncomfortable. We're waking up. So symbols are very important. You know, the human brain, for example, it stores a lot of data in it as sort of pictograms, images. And that's why symbols are so important. They're powerful. They have this effect on the mind. And so the negatives have used these symbols against us. What we have to do is take back the power and use symbols for us to help activate us. That's why I love astrology. You know, it was JP Morgan who says millionaires never use astrology, but billionaires always do.
Yeah, that's
We
right. That's
have to ask
Internet's dodgy your side, my love. It's very dodgy. You've just frozen. So just while we're reassessing that, and again, we've had a lot of internet upsy downsies. The Aries, the goddess Aries, yes, it's really quite startling when you see that the planned next global hurt that's planned for the masses is also named after this goddess, is Greek goddess. Interesting, so many people say that Zeus is actually Enlil. We won't get into that, but with Eris and it being the name, the goddess, it again helps people to pull back and go, the people that run your planet use the Greek and Egyptian mythology as part of the symbolism. And it's a big joke to them. And they have dumbed down generations of education in classical mythology, ancient history, in order for the masses not to even get a peek of memory, you know, any kind of thing to get triggered, and keep them dumped down like the zombies they think we are. So it's very interesting when we do allow a moment to see the blending of everything that's happening. Okay, your internet seems to be back here
Great.
now.
No, thank you. I mean, it's interesting. The internet, and it's very symbolic of what's going on. I mean, you've had major issues, and wherever I'm traveling through, it seems to be a bit spotty at the moment, where normally it's not. But the thing is, you know, it's interesting with the Enlil Enki conversation. And I said this to you before, I'm very open to that ongoing conversation. We're never going to know definitively, you know, everything. It's part of our learning curve as a species. I personally, though, would posit Enlil more in the Saturn camp, And the reason is Saturn is control and is manipulation and is a constriction. But I tend to use the term positive Zeus rather than just Zeus, positive Jupiter, because in the great astrology, Jupiter's the great benefic. Wherever we have Jupiter in our chart, we tend to be blessed. So I tend to see Jupiter quite positively. At the same time, if you look at the myth of Zeus or Jupiter with Prometheus, in some ways, Enki has a Promethean quality, doesn't he? Why? Because Prometheus gives fire to humanity. He gives power to humanity. He believes that humanity can step into the role as leader, as co-creator. And so I tend to see Saturn more in the negative camp. And that's also what we're seeing with the deep state globalist agenda. It's very Saturnian. It's keeping us fixed in a very limited frequency. And that's also why I love tapping into the sound of frequency vibration, because it allows us to understand frequency better and to escape that sort of limited perceptual matrix that we've been kept in.
Amazing, amazing. It's so interesting too that the fact that, you know, you and I, for example, are having horrible internet issues, and yet we have this 5G, and they're putting up military grade surveillance everywhere, which I'm hoping people are going to catch on to that too. You know, I did hear in Britain that a lot of Brits were like kicking them down, taking them down, like, go on then, find me, you know, going against the militia that's trying to continue the model for China, you know, because they've done all their practicing for years over there. And then if people kindly allow themselves to listen and to recognize that 5G is not to download more of the Kardashians, it's to put in position the surveillance and the you know, internment of humanity, which will not happen, is failing. But we're in the process of pulling up their railings and kicking down their cameras and pushing back on them and saying, oi, boys, knob off. Okay, so moving on. I want to jump quickly before we come back to the rest of the astrology. George, you are a prolific musician, and you put yourself down and I won't hear a word of it. You have something new. Can you give us the frequencies and show us your new instrument that won't play on Zoom because they block frequency? That's something very good you pointed out, that they block the Zoom frequency, so we can't play our harmonies, our forks, our crystal balls when we're on a two-way. So show us the instrument and tell people, along with their understanding astrology and the ancient history, how they can use solfeggio harmonics to help them, please.
But unfortunately, as Dani's just said, I'm not able to, well, I can play it, but you won't hear it. And that's a very deliberate protocol of the Zoom function. All my sound therapy I do online, I use WhatsApp, or I use FaceTime or another app, because the sound actually travels very beautifully through it. Where with Zoom, no, the frequencies just don't work. And that's very deliberate, you know, and it's controlled. And think about it, Zoom was created at the beginning of COVID. It was all rolled out as a way to control us and to monitor and censor, eventually censor things, but to control at this stage. This is a fantastic crystal quartz harp. And I can't really describe it. There aren't words to describe it, but I use it in tandem with other crystal chalices of certain notes to create music of the spheres, to think of Pythagoras, to create certain tones that correspond with others. So for example, you know, a C and a G is like a perfect fifth in music, but it's also like a trine in astrology. It's all about the angles. You see, there are correspondences between astrology, tarot, and music. You know, if you think of C, it's Aries, C sharp is Taurus, etc., etc. And you start to build up the scale. You know, 12 is the Jupiter number. You know, we have 12 zodiac signs. We have 12 months of the year. We have 12 Chinese zodiac signs. You know, 12 1 + 2 is 3. Now you think Tesla. There are these amazing mathematical formula out there, and this really does tap into some of these frequencies. And of course, you know, there was rife in the past who've been able to identify a specific frequency having a specific job of healing, and it can kill a certain disease, and we're still figuring that out. But when I play this over the patient with my other crystal bowls, which I put around them, there is something transformative that happens. It is deeply angelic, this sound. And as you can see, it's got a lovely sheen to it, almost like an effervescent purpley blue rainbow color, hasn't it?
Are
It's
they
amazing.
crystal tubes, George? Can you tell us?
Yes, yeah, the crystal tubes, and each one has a separate note, so it's a scale. So, and it's, don't forget, it's set for 432 hertz. It's not 440. So it's very, very pure sound. So you've got C, you've got the whole scale going up and down. I mean, I wish I could play it for you, but it is magical. Maybe I will do a recording for you on WhatsApp or something, and then share it with you.
Yes, I really want that, because I did it also for Mariska and Matisse, my friends, who play ancient instruments. Yeah, and I got them because we tried it on Zoom once, and of course it was blocked. So I had them record a sound bath for everyone watching, and it's on my channel. So just scroll down to Matisse and Mariska, and I want you just to record with your beautiful instruments, so people can just like lay down and plug in and feel those frequencies, because this is the harmony, the harmonizing of self, with the rest of humanity, but each individual needs to take care of their own vessel. And I think people are waking more and more to accepting that, rather than being in their little huddles and their little gangs and their little, oh, I feel good when I'm talking shit over here, or I feel good when I'm meditating and imagining myself here. And because there's so much delusion, but the music breaks through that, doesn't it, George? It breaks down the full structure of self and really gets to the core. So we really do invite you to do that.
No, I'd love to do that. I mean, it does. It's something alchemical that happens to us when we play and listen to music. And in some ways, this is a reconnection to nature, because we are innately musical as human beings. Now, of course, some people, I mean, I have a friend, for example, he knows so much about music and listens to it, but he can't play it himself. And that's fine. And I have another friend who's run, a Wi-Fi company for 30 years, and he has vast knowledge of music, but he can't play an instrument. But he gets so much out of it. The point is, it doesn't matter whether we play that instrument or not, or whether we do. It's actually about how music transports us, how it alchemizes something in us and reconnects us to the divine. And that's also part of us being in nature. I mean, it's funny, I speak to you now and there's a cockerel just crowing in the background. I'm on a farm here in North Carolina, and it's very potent, because the negatives are deeply trying to disrupt our natural biorhythm. And so the music is one fundamental way that we all can, tune in. And of course, you need to be mindful of the frequency. So 532 hertz is good. A lot of rap music, not all of it, can have some negative undertones to it. It is what it is. It's a question of frequency. And when one understands some of the modern music that was created after the Second World War very deliberately, and the tones they used, I'm not going to mention names, but I remember in London many years ago, an individual who was very involved in the founding of the Beatles and founding of Mick Jagger and him and his team. And there was a big conversation about how they were shifting the frequencies in order to get humans to behave in a certain way. And the more we understand that, then the more we can say, okay, we're not going to go down that route with frequency. We're going to go down the positive, which is going to be very, very healing and restorative for us, as opposed to entropic. Here's what it is. Music can be centropic or it can be entropic, and we have the choice. It's a bit like modern art. It's a bit like art. Art can either be beautiful and connect us to source, or it can be nihilistic and separate us from source. So we have to consciously register what is being revealed to us through the deciphering of symbols and pictures.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. We always have so much to talk about, Georgie, and I do love conversations. And obviously you are our resident astrologer. You're also my friend, and we do enjoy our chats, and we hope that others do too, because so much comes up. You mentioned about the kind of demonic element in music, and I've been sharing with people how many of the leaders that we call leaders, how many of the heads in the music industry, the singers, they're the satanic witches who are out there on tour big time right now. They are run by demonic entities they've made deals with. It sounds so ridiculous. It sounds so ridiculous and made up, but it's true. That's why I wrote my book. angels, demons, and aliens, because these species all exist. I've interacted with them all. There's a massive program saying now that no, aliens are demons. They're demons in disguise. Really? What do you call an angel then? You know, angels can also be fake. You know, again, frequency. I've met negative angels too, but this book is my childhood to now, a lot of the experiences I've had in order to allow people to awaken, trigger a memory, open cellular memory, connect, listen to someone who actually had the same horrible start as them and the fear of seeing everything to this moment. You know, there's many of us who've come as messengers. We don't need to be on platforms. We could just be in our own family, just our own family. And, you know, when we shift frequency in the family, because of the DNA connected in the bloodline of the family, there's a shift that happens there too, because we are so magical, harmonic, high frequency when we let ourselves be. Now, I remember recently Cardi B, who's a rap chick, put filth out, absolute filth. I can't believe that that's allowed on television, all the shaking of all the, you know, the wrong parts of the body that you don't want your 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old or even 10, 11, 12-year-old to see. But it's there and it's very aggressive and it's terribly abusive and it's permitted in order to control, to force an acceptance that, of course, is completely against our natural, loving, harmonic nature. And they've admitted, there's many people here coming forward saying that when they take an album, they'll spell on it. The witches and the warlocks come in. This is true. It is true. You mentioned the millionaires don't do it. The billionaires do it. You should talk to Tony Rodriguez about that. You know, the billionaire family that kidnapped him, they're all about the rituals, all about the spelling, all about the sacrifice. I mean, this is reality. But we don't want people to go into fear and drama because that's not helpful and it's not useful. You know, we're British, you and I were like, come on. You know, we understand it's scary, but you got to stand ground. You've got to focus here on the inside, on your individual healing first. You know, people are like, I want to heal. What's my mission? Your mission is you, boo, right? Your mission is you. Yeah. Now, George, in terms of the astrology, is there a possibility that you could go through the different astrological signs pertaining to each individual that has one and what time frame they're in now? What can they do to protect? What could they do to help themselves?
So with the collective, we have what's called the nodal axis. The North Node is right now 25 degrees Aries, and the nodes move backwards. So it's going to go 25, 24, 23, etc. Eris, the god of discord, is at 24 degrees Aries. So on the autumn equinox, so next week, we're going to see an exact conjunction of the North Node with Eris. This is definitely going to create opportunity on both sides of consciousness to do certain things. That's how astrology works. It really creates a vehicle, an energy where things can play out. The archetype can be manifested. So on the negative, the goddess Eris with the North Node could be some disease, pestilence, some dark black swan event. You know, a lot of talk about a DEW, direct or more direct energy weapons and all these sort of things coming out of that Pandora's jar, or Pandora's box as we commonly call it. It was actually a jar. But remember, folks, at the bottom of the jar was hope. And so with all these pestilences that come out, and they're all controlled and they come out, you know, Gates-style pestilences, there is hope at the bottom. Now, right today, the moon is in Libra, conjunct the South Node. So there is a depth of feeling today. People are probably feeling a little antsy, a little intense, and, you know, almost yearning for the better days of the past. Well, this time will shift. And we are feeling, you know, a little tired by what's going on astrologically at the moment, because people are being bombarded left, right, and center by all these negative energies out there. But things are going to start to clear. I'm not saying tomorrow or next week, but as we move into 2024, we have this amazing conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus. And in astrology, Jupiter is the benefic. And I don't want to get into the Enki Enlil thing, because that's still very debatable. Who is who and who lines up with who. But Jupiter and Uranus does, in the myth, always take down Saturn. And for me, Saturn, in some ways, is the old order, the old perceptual 3D matrix that has kept us in this band of frequency that we must escape from. Not escape into the central digital world currency that the New World Order wants. That's one option. The other option would be radical decentralization, localization, where humanity for the first time ever get a sense of what real freedom is about. And in some ways, that's my biggest mission, is to learn more and then to share what freedom really feels, smells, tastes, touches like, and what it is to be spiritually free. We as human beings do not know that in the zeitgeist. We just think freedom is, you know, like I work like stink to do a posh weekend or a 2-week holiday in Turks and Caicos at a posh hotel. We think that's freedom. No, it's not. That's posh slavery. That's a high echelon enslaved person. We've all been enslaved in this system. And I think the opportunity with the Great Awakening is for us to realize our enslavement. And from that point of view, we can then get out of it and start to move towards a world where there is much more transparency and real leadership, people actually looking after their fellow human beings, and the family being important. Whatever the family looks like, it can have many different looks to it, but the sense of the intimacy, the loyalty, the kindness, and the love between small groups of people, and making their own decisions for themselves, not by some autocratic diktat or bureaucratic diktat from millions of miles away.
That's so true. And we're seeing the madness of the crazed ones who, you know, Bill Gates, that bloody, what's that Pratt, who talks like this all the way, the World Economic Forum. The other day
we will penetrate the cabinet.
Yes, and you will own nothing and you will be happy. So the other day, I mock that idiot. You know, he looks like 1,000 years old. And in his mind, he truly believes he is godlike and he is in charge of the reset. Mate, you're deluded. So I said the other day, oi, chitty chitty bang bang called. They're missing the Bavarian king in the castle. You remember that idiot, that king that liked all these rocking horses and the toys, you know, and then, you know, the main characters come into, I love that. What do you see, you people gazing at me? You'll see a doll of a music box that's wound by a key. And then he's sitting there and he's all excited because he's got this. That's where he belongs, back in that Bavarian castle.
That's a great analogy. I haven't seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang for decades, but you know, it's so true. They get rid of all the children. You have the child catcher. I mean, it's very relevant as a documentary for people to watch today, actually.
Yeah, but yeah,
Tesla technology, flying cars.
Yes, indeed, indeedy duty. Yes. So again, just pointing out that the real demons in physical form are these so-called leaders that do intend, because they've looked down the lines of history, and there's been like the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, and then there was, you know, the time after the Templars where they called it the Five Winds, and all of the knowledge and the great artifacts that would enhance humanity went 5 different ways across the planet to be, you know, hidden and kept for the people. But of course, that was influence. And then those band parts, they took that, they're like, oh, this is how we control the world. And then we'd mock that Mike, I forget his name, Mike Myers, like, I want £1 million or $1 million. And this, you know, the joke of that is actually the reality of the world. Like these zombie-headed one-celled amoebas are so puffed up with their demons and the dark, and they're controlled by these soul contracts with Satan. And it's true. It sounds so ridiculous, and yet it's true. And again, people collapsing that system of, no, that's not true. Jesus never said that. Collapsing all the systems internally, each individual, it's going to help them accept more information to then, you know, become stronger.
I mean, that's also where astrology is just so helpful. And I can't impress this upon, you know, all your listeners more, is, for example, the Pluto. So when Pluto, he's going retrograde back through Capricorn just for the next year and a half, and then he leaves Capricorn for another, he won't be there for another 250 years. The point is the last time this happened was the birth of the United States Republic. And the time before that was Luther and his theses he put up in Wittenberg against the Catholic Church. And then you've got Galileo, Renaissance time. It's very fascinating, the cycles we're going through, because really when Pluto goes through Capricorn in the final stages of what's happening now, it is the absolute destruction of all the old institutions, corporations, all those three-letter agencies, even FEMA, things like that. Everyone's coming to realize just how corrupt all these organizations are. But here's the interesting thing, is when it moves into Aquarius, you see Aquarius is belief systems. And between 2024 and 2042, which is 20 plus years, you are going to see the belief systems on this planet collapse like you're seeing the corporations collapse, because the belief systems can't sustain the consciousness that's coming into this planet. So a lot of people still stick to very old religions. And it's not that that's all wrong. It's just we've got to not define ourselves by our belief system. We are souls incarnate having an experience, and then we happen to believe X, Y, and Z. We mustn't get too caught up in defining ourselves by our belief systems, because that's what creates the pain and the separation. Other people, can you hear me?
Yeah, you just froze there for a moment, so I'm glad that we're still going. Keep going, darling, please.
Yeah. So it's a sense of allowing other people to have their own belief systems and not getting caught up in people having a fixed belief, because that's how war and strife and separation happens, is when we define ourselves by our belief system. We have to move out of our own self-definition of our own belief.
What would you say right now in terms of all the astrological signs? Of course, there's not a person on the planet that isn't affected by everything around them, no matter where they are in the world. What would you say in terms of a specific sign that may be having a little bit more of a tougher time? Is that a possibility that we can focus on for a moment?
Yes. I mean, I think all signs, as you said, are being affected. It also depends on how the natal chart is constituted. For instance, it's not just the sun sign. So I know people who may have a sun sign, say in Cancer, but they have 5 planets in Taurus. And that's going to then affect them much more differently when it comes to the fixed sign of Taurus energy. Now, at the moment, because the nodes are moving through what's called the Aries-Libra axis, so it's hitting what's called the cardinals. So Cancer, Aries, Capricorn, and Libra. There's a lot of change happening with those zodiac systems. So people who have a lot of Libra, Cancer, Aries, and Capricorn, they're going to be feeling the pull of the nodal shift, depending on where the nodes are in their house. So, for example, if it's in the 10th house, there may be a shift in career. If it's in the 7th house, it may be a shift in a partnership and the love relationship. In the 4th house, it could be moving away from home or having a disagreement with your family, or some positive uptick. So I think in a way, I can't really say definitively, because, for example, Jupiter and Uranus are currently in Taurus. And if that's going over someone's sun sign in Taurus, that's going to be quite positive. They're going to be having some, larger growth spurts, some expansion going on. But also, I would say in Capricorn, Pluto is in Capricorn. So anyone who has a lot of planets in Capricorn, Pluto is in the last few degrees of Capricorn. It's going to have a bigger impact on you, especially if you've got a sun or a moon in the last 2 or 3 degrees of Capricorn. You are going through a major transformation at the moment with Pluto. Saturn too, though, is in Pisces, 2 degrees Pisces at the moment. So Saturn tends to limit, create restriction, but also create architectural foundation and stability. And it's in Pisces, so it could be stability in music or stability in Piscean mystical interests. So in some ways, everyone's being affected. But right now, I'd say with the moon and Mars in Libra and the nodes there, and Eris in Aries with the North node and Chiron in Aries, we're certainly seeing a lot of heavy work, heavy lifting being done on the Aries-Libra axis.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. In terms of using harmony, music, and frequencies to help our brothers and our sisters, what would you recommend as a first stage to somebody just awakening to the idea of where if I have a tone and I let it run through my body, this can actually benefit me? What would you say?
So it's interesting, actually. I wanted to share something with you because actually I was listening to Elena Danan quite a few months ago, and she had, I learned a couple of prayers from her. They were protection prayers. You probably know them, but I chant some of them. I mean, also I do Gregorian chants with my patients and clients online. But there was a lovely, lovely. I remember I learned three from Elena Danan, three chants, three prayers, protection prayers. But one of them, if I can recall, it's called. I think in English it translates as "protection of light, shine," and it goes something like "Imaru asubiru hara, Imaru asubiru hara." Imaru Asubiru Ara. So Imaru is the great light, if I'm not mistaken, and then Ara is to shine. So let the great light shine. Isn't that beautiful?
So beautiful. And thank you for sharing that and singing that. It's lovely to hear
There's so many ways. I mean, I love Gregorian chants, but you can tone. You don't even have to sing something specific. You can just take some vowels and tone. Obviously I can't show you here because the music doesn't work on Zoom, as we've discussed. But if you literally just hit, one of your tuning forks, or you have a sound bowl, a lot of people now have a Tibetan sound bowl. They probably got it in the key of D. That's a lovely note, and just start riffing off that. I mean, I sometimes sing whole songs off just one note. It's like a tone, and it gives you the key, and then you riff off it, and it's very, very healing.
And even somebody sitting like, like just imagining even from the base of the spine or from the feet, it doesn't matter, from the earth, imagine grounding into the earth and then just because your cells are really in need of some vibratory resonance, people, and if you can't get outside in the sun and do it at the same time, then just, and then we imagine the sun, we imagine the light, we imagine everything internally. It's time to play on every level like that. This is what the ancients did. They knew this. They knew everything that's been shut down from us. It's just amazing when we start to bring all that back, and own it and ignore your husband, your wife, your mum, you ignore. They don't choose to do that. That's fine. But you can, we're just so powerful. We can do whatever we want, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. I mean, I can't remember who said it. It wasn't me. Life's rejections are God's protections. So when we get rejected, when we feel we're pushed away, in some ways, it's our higher self steering us onto our true path. Life's rejections are God's protections.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The way that, you and I were grown up British, but I'm glad to say that we're both quite, in some way, extrovert and very introvert in other ways. But people, I'll speak for England, Britain, people in Britain, have always tended to be very critical. Oh, look at her, she's showing off. Oh, look at George and his new crystal xylophone or his crystal harp. And, there's we're trained, to not build people up. That's been a long-term thing, sadly, right? And then if you look at, for example, you've mentioned Elena Danan a few times here, she just happens to be my best friend in the world, and she's a massive leader in galactic information. And she's such an extraordinary free being. And someone like Elena, when the girls are being mean about her, or boys or whatever, or people, they don't understand, this lady, will just be walking along, and then suddenly she'll just stop. And then she'll feel something. And she's not invested in one person looking at her. She's so free in her emotions and her beingness. And she might just decide to pop a little arabesque. There's nothing wrong with that. It's beautiful. It's the freedom of the uninhibited child. And Elena Danan is one such person that absolutely it just encompasses that freedom, and like, oh, look at that show off over there. Me, I'm always dancing in shops, always just dancing in shops, just dancing in shops. I was eating ice cream with my friend Diane Forster in San Diego the other week when I was there visiting with her, and we got we went to 7-Eleven, and we bought Ben and Jerry's, right? The spoon was rubbish. And so I was like munching off mine, like, I didn't realize, because I'm not always that aware of things that I should be. I'm still kind of 5 years old in some regard. So I had all the shape of the ice cream. I had it on my nose. I didn't. Anyway, I was at this really beautiful bookstore. It's ancient, really old. It's been there forever in Encinitas, California. And I had all this ice cream around my face. And then there was this beautiful harmony coming from the store. And I forget the piece it was. It was an orchestral harmonic piece that we'd all know. And as I stepped into the shop, I stepped onto the perfect note. And then I twirled. And the man was like, right? Yeah, but I think he must have thought, oh God, here comes the village idiot. Anyway, because the next thing I start chatting away, and I've got all this ice cream around my face and on my nose, and I was completely oblivious to it. Anyway, so he was such a sweet guy. I walked to the back of the store and I find a George Carlin, great messenger of using your noggin. And there was a whole CD collection, and I bought the whole thing. But while I was going back and forth with the chap and I stepped outside, he still wasn't sure. I walk outside and Diane Forster is on the floor. She can't even talk to me because she didn't tell me I had it on my nose, but she didn't know I was going to go in there dancing. She's watching the whole thing, but rather than be humiliated, I thought it was hysterical. I thought it was the funniest thing ever. Yeah, and that's a freedom, just to be not chained, not care. Why would we care? I don't care that the man thought I was crazy. I don't care. I think that's funny.
It's interesting you were talking about Britain, and obviously we're British, but yet, we live in the United States. Britain is a Capricorn country. America, because of its birth chart, like Britain's birth chart in 1801, with the Act of Union between England and Wales together with Scotland and Northern Ireland, is a Capricorn country. So you can see the qualities of Britain, with pomp and circumstance, of military, but also more to do with corporations, the City of London, the control, top down, Capricorn's top down. And you can see that sort of shifting. So you and I, we live in a Cancer country. Now, even though it's been inverted through the corporation, we don't need to go into that. Your listeners know exactly what we're talking about with 1871 and the Federal Reserve, the inversion of that. America's a Cancerian country. It comes from the heart. What is Cancer in astrology? It's the pericardium, that piece of the body that protects the heart, which is Leo. And in some ways, with Capricorn, Capricorn rules the knees and the bones. It's ruled by Saturn. It's very formal, stiff upper lip, and so no wonder the Brits can be quite poo-pooey towards people who might get a new xylophone, because they've been taught to not like to see success. They want everyone to be doing it the correct way. Where, I always say this, in America, if a man drives down a street in a Ferrari, the archetype in America is, my goodness me, one day I'm going to be able to get that myself. When in Britain, if a man drives down the street in a Ferrari, why is that silly man got that and I haven't? It's glass half empty. Now, the positive of Capricorn, of course, is responsibility and formality and hard work. So I'm not saying it's all bad, but we have to understand the archetypes better. And so you understand countries carry certain energies themselves, not just us individuals, but countries have archetypal energies, and Britain is a Capricorn country.
And glad to say also, of course, you and I are talking about our kind of, being younger. I mean, I'm still living, I live in England now. I've just moved back here. You, point out the differences in the two, and the way that you and I were programmed and raised in the British system, which is to don't be happy for everyone. There's a lot of envy and jealousy. Of course, it's just not right. And America definitely led the way in that, definitely led the way, more of independent thinking. And I used to think years ago when I lived there that the American dream, it's a pie, and it's okay for you to have your American dream as long as you give a slice away. I still think that's true, but the beauty in the people, that all of the people, all the colors, all the races that live in America, they're very much a part of that energy frequency. And although it's been very much covered up, it's still there, that passion for that beautiful country. I love America. I really do. I learned so much from her. The different states and climates and accents and people and thinking, and it is a really, really significantly important landmass on our beautiful globe, and it's been so targeted. And I feel the saddest for America at the moment in terms of her energy, her repression, because every single person, it's no longer the indigenous brothers and sisters, it's every single person. There's no distinction anymore. It's just the elites want this and everybody else is fair game as far as they're concerned. But there is this undercurrent, this surging up, and so many people are going, oh my God, I'm working on myself, I'm loving me, I'm humming myself into harmonizing, I'm letting myself break down genetic programming. And there's just so much to be said for that. But the astrology plays into it, doesn't it, George?
Yeah, I mean, it does. And, Pluto's going over the American birth chart at the moment. I mean, I noticed something the other day when I was looking at Mr. Trump's chart. In April next year, I don't think anyone's noticed it. Maybe they have, but I haven't heard someone talk about it. Literally, Jupiter goes right over Mr. Trump's midheaven in April next year. I don't know what that's going to, well, I have some inclinations and some thoughts what that might mean, but certainly greater visibility. Something is going to play out. And so I think 2024 is the culmination of this Pluto cycle, because by the end of 2024, Pluto leaves Capricorn and goes into Aquarius. And then we're into what I would call is the time of the Second Republic, whatever that looks like, whatever we call it. It's a sense of that first cycle of the United States and its constitution, and how it's been subverted and inverted and all that, and how it's going to be restored. And ultimately, my faith is that the philosophy of the United States, the Constitution of the United States, we the people, is going to be rolled out as an international document for the first time to support us one common humanity in the age of Aquarius, which is very exciting.
Yeah, one common humanity, that's currency is love, and not one world order. Of course, we're
there
saying
we go.
the
There
opposite.
we go. There
Right.
we go. It's a back to the frequency thing, you see.
Yeah.
Do we use astrology to manipulate and to coerce, or do we use astrology to enliven, to embolden, to ennoble, to allow for love and consciousness to come through, so we can connect to our true identity? And so for me, it's always like the knife. Is it there to break the bread, to feed the family, or to murder? We can't judge it in of itself. It's the intention that matters,
Yeah. Just to go back a little bit now, again, I for me, there's not one single person, nor will there ever be on this planet, I don't care who you are, that is like the God to me. I will not allow it, because we all have the same. I believe we're all equal in so many ways, that we have rights to free food, free water, clean air, all the rest of the things that the elites have screwed up. So when it comes to politics, I just don't go there, because I will never accept there's one person that's going to save my life, save my world. That's not true. It is a collective. It is a collective, and we are all part of that. So in terms of, you said Trump's chart, so can you go back and tell us a bit more what you mean, that what will be over his what?
So it just so happens that Mr. Trump's natal chart, his midheaven is at 24 degrees Taurus. And what that means is that in April next year, Jupiter and Uranus make a conjunction right on his midheaven. Whenever Jupiter goes over someone's midheaven, there is always an increase in that person's public visibility. And because it's Jupiter rather than Saturn, or Venus rather than Mars, in other words, the two benefics, bene meaning good, Jupiter and Venus, or male meaning bad, Saturn and Mars. I mean, I'll give you a quick example. When certain people's fall from grace has occurred, it normally happens when Mars or Saturn hits their midheaven. I can't remember the exact details, but I remember with Kevin Spacey, when all that stuff came out, Saturn went right over his midheaven. So all I'm saying very calmly, it's interesting that in April, May next year, Mr. Trump's midheaven is significantly activated. His chart too is very connected, in my mind, to the chart of the United States, meaning there's a lot of overlaps. There's a lot of interplay between the angles, between the energies of the natal charts of the United States and Mr. Trump's natal chart. So for me, to be clear to your listeners, this is much bigger than politics. This is actually about the dismemberment and the dismantling of an old system, and certain people play a large part in that dismantlement. That's what I'm saying. Look at it in those terms, as opposed to we're on this side or that side. It's a question of he is like a catalyst for that change. And that's obviously clear, because 2016 is some years ago now, and we've seen that. No one has been attacked more than that man. And that should tell us quite a lot. And of course, everyone has their issues to deal with. No one is perfect. I'm certainly not saying that. But it's interesting just to note that in April next year, Uranus conjunct Jupiter goes right over his midheaven.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Again, using the terminology that you're so well versed in terms of astrology. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and for those coming more into the science of astrology, it's nice to get these, like midheaven, natal chart, for example. Now, you're a prolific teacher. You're just such a beautiful being. You do these beautiful retreats where people can come to you one-to-one. Before we get into them, I do want, again, to let people know that George is going to do a beautiful recording for you when he's back in his studio, when he's got his instruments, and he's going to go through them, explain them, and I will post it on my channel. And then you just stick your headphones in and you just lay down and you just let yourself be Georged. Let yourself be George Lewis. Right? So now, let's talk about how you can bring your teachings and people can come to you for your great teachings.
I mean, for me, October is such a really interesting month, because of course we know a lot of astrological weather is happening, and it's not easy for any of us. It really isn't. But I'm thoroughly looking forward to attending your conference. It's a big one for me. I love the community. I had one of the best conferences I've ever been to last year. I met so many kindred spirits, and of course the lineup of speakers was second to none. So I'm looking forward just to being in the audience and attending. After that, I'm going to be doing a small retreat down in Miami, and it's going to literally be the day after yours finishes, and it's going to be midweek, Monday through Thursday. And I'm really bringing an awful lot of sound therapy and light activation. I'm teaching sort of sun gazing, and we've got some water frequency activations I'm going to be doing, but obviously a lot of astrology and tarot, and mainly my sound frequency. I've also got some other practitioners who are coming to join me at this retreat. So it's going to be a nice, intimate one. It's on South Beach. We've taken over a really, really nice little boutique hotel at a fraction of the price. We hope to get some more people to come and join. It would be a nice thing to do to really go deep into soul family, people to connect together. Because this is part of the thing I felt, I probably read for 20 people a week on average, maybe more, maybe less, depending on each week. And the big thing which we all have in common is we've all been separate from each other. And these retreats, especially your conference, allows for us to come together. And when we're together, we're much stronger, and we don't feel isolated. And that's one of the biggest things for me, to hold space and bring, allow for people to come together and find soul family in the last 3 years. And I get a lot of pleasure out of seeing that.
That's so beautiful. And again, yeah, people's lives were forever changed in the best way. Even Tony Rodriguez, who was a speaker, of course, last year. And it even said last night on my channel with the broadcast that he and I did, that everything in his life completely changed in the most positive. And this year for his presentation, all he has to do is really relate to the last 12 months, and it's lovely that you can gift that retreat after the conference where people are still feeling that 4D love and that 5D resonance, and their souls opened, their hearts opened, and there's so many healings that take place and took place, and just the gathering of the people, and so beautiful. Well, we'll put all of your details underneath, of course. Is there a name for your course that you could tell us?
The retreat, I mean, it's on my website. It's on georgehLewis.com. All the information is there. I'm doing it with a friend of mine who's putting it on, called Rags. She's Norwegian American. We did the Norwegian retreat together, and she's known as the New Viking. We're going to be doing this together. Yeah,
I love it.
I mean, it's all about frequency, light and frequency. That's really what I want to just share, as many insights that I have with people about how to tune in to their own light and frequency, so they can activate themselves, to the best of their ability. I mean, this is a very strange time. I mean, it always reminds me of that. Was it Dickens who said, this is the best of times, it's the worst of times, it's the age of wisdom, and it's the age of despair or foolishness, I think he says. But it really is the whole gamut, the whole polarity is there, and we have to then choose which side we're going to go towards. Again, Saturn, fear, and Uranus conjunct Jupiter, which is hope and expansion towards love, consciousness. And so I think this is the season of light, rather than the season of darkness. In October, we're going to make it the season of light. We're going to make it the spring of hope rather than the winter of despair.
Definitely. And the whole kind of religious structures are on a desperate campaign to tell people that cards and crystals and they're all tools of divination, which is evil, and they're so desperate to they would just want the last 2,000 years of the Christ information, the Bible information. They've forgotten all the rest of the billions of years we've been here, and how many levels of humanity has been here that was way more intelligent, way more advanced than we are in 2023. Fact. And that the earth gave us these gifts, the earth gave us, and the ancients perfected ways of harmonizing with the cosmos and harmonizing with the planet and her heartbeat and all of that. And we refuse. We will not allow silly people who are programmed to say that crystals are not allowed and harmonies are not allowed, and that we can't connect to the frequency of our own bodies and blend that and heal through that, because that's all possible. So we're not bringing back anything new. We're just continuing to honor the ancient wisdom that every single person has a right to. And if they want to stick a modern day religion in the way, fine, go ahead and do that, but don't ruin it for the others. Don't
exactly. You're so right. And also, I will remind those people who want to be critical of a crystal. Crystal is a bit like the knife. You can either use it for positive or negative. You can charge the crystal with one energy, and then you can charge it with another energy. One could be benefic, the other could be malefic. I mean, when we have more disclosure about time travel and space and all this, we're going to understand that crystals play a major part. Certain crystals, anyway, play a major part in traveling through the galaxy.
Losing you, my darling, losing you. You're just saying that there's crystals on pretty much every planet, pretty much every species everywhere in our solar system.
That's right.
Uses them. How on earth could that be something damages? It's put in as a mental mind MK Ultra program for us to deflect away from the very things that help us build our spaceships, build our spacecraft. Our own pineal gland is crystalline, creates piezoelectricity. It's like, come on, John, enough of your nonsense. Off you pop. Yeah. So George, I love you. I love hanging out with you, and just your wisdom and your generosity and the astrology and everything else that you have. I'd love for you to bring this conversation to a close in whichever way you deem you would like.
Yeah, I mean, with this North Node coming up with Eris, lean into your positive Eris of righteous anger, standing up for family, for truth, for love. You use that in a way because it's connected to Mars, the warrior archetype, to step into your own radical self-sovereignty. You know, at the end of the day, we are birthing a new Earth here, and that requires standing up to tyranny. And so use Eris positively rather than it being used upon you negatively. You know, these are turbulent times, but as I said, quoting Dickens, it is the best in times and this is the worst of times. It's up to us to choose which way we're going to head.
Brilliant. George H. Lewis, you are a blessing to the world, to me, to everyone that knows you, and to this channel. Thank you for bringing your wisdom, your love, and your grace. And we will again meet next month. Well, I'll see you at the conference, the Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection, which is just over a month away now, guys. So go ahead and get your tickets. George will be there. Our mutual friend, Dr. Christiane Northrup, will be there on stage delivering her pearls of wisdom and her magnificence. And Dr. Sala will be there, of course. Elena Danan, Alex Collier will be there. He's also vendoring this year and introducing a couple of our speakers, and Jean-Charles Moyen, his wife Melanie, who helps hybrid children off planet, Karina Pataki, who's decoded the Bible. There's so many people there. Brad Olson for his ancient knowledge on civilizations, past and present, and so many people. Nikki Allen's doing a 2.5-hour show Friday evening, mediumship, connecting to love, the love within us, the love to our loved ones. We have Jerry Wills, who just made the most beautiful little intro that's going everywhere about him and his participating in the conference. He's our beautiful alien resident, let's say. He's so humble, he won't allow the title to bestow him, but we do invite you, ladles and jelly beans, to be part of this beautiful energy arena, the JISIC, as we call it, JISIC 2023. So George, love you. See you next month for the Astrology on the channel. Definitely lots of love, and we'll see you very soon. Lots of love to you all, from my heart to yours. See you soon.